Alright, we're still cranking through. My gosh, it takes a long time to upload a video. If you're still with me and you're still watching, I commend you. I didn't get a very good screenshot of this article, so let me try this again. Again. It's by Dreux Richard. Okay, so hopefully you caught that. And here we go. I'm going to find where I left off. Again, this is Byron, Illinois. Okay, INPO doesn't publish its ratings. INPO is the Institute of Nuclear Power Operations. The plant personnel contend that Byron's INPO #1 streak is the longest in the nation. You hear flagship a lot, one source said. You hear world's safest. Those words are a comfort to the 3,753 residents of rural Byron who depend on the plant for continued economic vitality. In an otherwise depressed region, Byron is conspicuously prosperous, and bitter battles with Exelon over tax assessments have reminded residents of the grim economic reality that might otherwise await them, as in Fukai and Fukushima prefectures, which, like Illinois, host a disproportionate number of their nation's nuclear power stations. Local taboos tend to keep public discussion of the plant's troubles to a minimum. We got a bunch of them here. We don't need them. They're poisoning us. Byron is for sure. I shall read on. Byron's safety record has made it an ideal petri dish for the cultivation of future corporate leaders. Many of Byron's longtime reactor operators allege that these leadership candidates bring with them a willingness to exploit the plant and its workers for their own short-term benefit. Imbuing Byron with a uniquely dysfunctional safety culture that epitomizes the nuclear industry's broader vulnerability to profit-driven opportunism. It's probably about 5 acres out there, the part where the shit happens. That's what it says. And that's a quote. It's probably about 5 acres out there, the part where the shit happens, one operator said. Per square inch, those 5 acres produce more misery than any other 5 in the world, at least as far as nuke plants go. In the wake of Fukushima nuclear crisis, many of Byron's operators have bristled at the notion that the disaster bore a uniquely Japanese cultural imprint. A lot has been made of the cultural element of what precipitated the accident at Fukushima, said one Byron reactor operator. Even in that official Nuclear Accident Independent Investigation Commission report, that'd be NAIIC report, and that provides an excuse for American nuke companies. Oh, that was a Japanese problem. But Byron is the poster child for that type of cultural failure. Ask Barry Quigley. On July 18, 2012, Quigley, a former operator who now works in Byron Station's engineering department, now remember, this article's a year old, I don't know where this guy is now, attended the NRC's annual assessment meeting, where regulators offer their evaluation of the plant's performance to the public. At Byron, foremost, he was there to demand answers about Byron Station's HELB, high-energy line break vulnerabilities. Simply put, there are 2 large holes in the wall of the plant's turbine building that shouldn't be there. They increase the likelihood that in an incident where high-energy piping breaks and releases a torrent of steam, that the steam could travel through the openings and cause damage to a number of safety-significant systems, or even a loss of operability to all safety-related equipment. Byron's diesel generators are especially vulnerable. Several HELB incidents have occurred at other nuclear plants. It's Fukushima-level stupid, explained one reactor operator. It's a design mistake, much like the misplacement of the diesel generators at Fukushima, but it would be astronomically expensive to fix, so fat chance. Oh, this ain't expensive to fix. Here's my 2 cents. Start pouring the concrete. The so-called fat chance, however, has been Quigley's specialty for almost 2 decades. The term whistleblower would suit him better if he wasn't still employed, safety crusades notwithstanding, by Exelon. In 2003, he was nearly terminated but was eventually returned to work and was even allowed to cherry-pick his new position. Barry first identified Byron's HELB vulnerability in 1991. They've known about this for 23 years. But it wasn't until April 2012 that he filed a petition under NRC rules to have the plant forced into shutdown until the issue could be addressed. Quigley feels that the subsequent regulator process has lacked zeal and thoroughness. NRC documents indicate that a month after Quigley had filed his petition, Bill Rowland, who was then chairman of the Petition Review Board evaluating Quigley's concerns, had failed to read the internal Exelon document on which the petition hinged, or to realize that Quigley himself had authored the document. None of which stopped Rowland or the board from using the very same document as a technical basis for denying Quigley's shutdown request. NRC's records also indicate that Bartlett hoped the installation of a redundant piece of safety equipment would help address the problem. But Bartlett appeared unaware that installation of the same equipment at Braidwood, Byron's sister plant, failed when the equipment blew apart, like a cheap children's toy, immediately after it was installed, according to Braidwood personnel. Like I said, there's a whole mess over there at Braidwood. Right now, I'm worried about Byron. I saw stuff with my own eyes. I know people seen stuff there on a daily. But, hey, I know what I saw, and this is what I'm dealing with. You start working on Braidwood. That's yours. Uses jurisdiction over there, down south of me. The annual assessment meeting was no more productive. In response to Quigley's HELB concerns, NRC Representative Kenneth O'Brien patiently explained what defense in depth means, a bedrock nuclear design principle. Defense in depth calls for nuclear plants to maintain multiple tiers of fail-safe safety systems, or, as O'Brien put it to nuclear engineers, Quigley, it's like wearing suspenders and a belt at the same time. It's all right if the belt comes undone. You've still got your suspenders on. No, it's not hard to believe they'd condescend me, Quigley later said, and it's not important. It's harder to believe they wouldn't catch the problem, the HELB problem. That's what matters. Maybe that's what happened over there. I know what I saw. I know what was coming out of those stacks, and I know I got sick, and now you got hundreds of people sick in Oak Park, and the wind was blowing right out of Byron. People are going to say, oh, why didn't everyone get sick? It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Oh, I'm happy to report I will no longer be driving anywhere near there. I have a new job. Yay! So this is my vacation between jobs. This is water, by the way, in case you're wondering. Help me get through this. Now I know what Weeping Willow 2 goes through. And Diana, it's harder to read these than I thought. So, again, bear with me. This is some really incredible stuff they reported in Japan and not here. Quigley is no stranger to the difficulties of forcing the NRC's gears into motion, and he has achieved relative success in the past. A Quigley petition in 1999 resulted in fatigue rules for nuclear workers. The amount of time Barry spent, the amount of money he took out of his own pocket to win that fight, it's astounding, said one of the plant's operators. He did it because, and I think this was always Barry's greatest fear, he didn't want to see anyone get worked to death. Barry must have felt, well, I don't know what he felt when Paul Busser died. Too little, too late, I guess. I believe that's the gentleman who hung himself. At Daughter Kaler's concert in early 2008, Karen Busser touched her husband Paul on the back and felt how his favorite coat hung on his bones. The year had been difficult, at work anyway. Paul was an NSO, and NSOs do shift work. Their schedules are like those of police officers or firefighters, several days and or nights on, a few days off, 12-hour shifts. Most operators struggle with shift work. Reactor operators present at relevant meetings say that internal studies concerning Byron's inability to retain its operators have concluded that shift work is the single largest contributor. But Paul was among the more senior NSOs and had wrangled a day job. This lasted until several other NSOs had alcohol trouble and had to go off shift. One landed in Paul's day job, sending Paul back to shift work. It was a bad time to go back. A number of management decisions had left NSO staffing chronically depleted, and the operators' labor union had little recourse. What few actions they could take were being relegated to a contractual gray area. Paul held it together until the holidays, when operating vacation time is at its highest and the shift work schedule descends into chaos. By January, Paul was exhibiting persistent like flu symptoms. He started to drop weight, eventually losing almost 40 pounds. He hung cardboard in his windows at home to keep the sunlight out. He migrated from couches to beds in search of sleep, but very little came. This went on for 3 months before Paul hung himself in the shed behind his boyhood home. After Paul's death, Karen filed a workers' compensation lawsuit. The suit alleges that Paul's onerous and unpredictable work schedule led to a sleep disorder which produced the mental disturbance that killed him. Litigation is ongoing. I call bullshit on that. I tell you what happened to him. He had a headache like you wouldn't believe, and he couldn't hold no food down. You can't sleep with that headache. This investigation uncovered a number of serious mischaracterizations, withholdings, and equivocations in Exelon's defense of the Busser case. Through its expert medical witness, Exelon states that Paul made no attempt to complain to management about his schedule burden, but this investigation verified that on at least 2 separate occasions, Paul indicated to his supervisors that he felt unable to continue shift work. Exelon claims that analysis of Paul's schedules demonstrates that his shift work was not especially onerous, but this investigation determined that Paul's schedule was in fact extremely onerous, and that Exelon's analysis was produced in a statistically manipulative and misleading manner. Further, Exelon's analysis is based on incomplete and inaccurate scheduling documents. Exelon also claims that Paul exhibited no signs of stress in the workplace and that any such signs should have been reported to the NRC immediately, per legal requirements. But this investigation discovered that on a night shift shortly before he took his own life, Paul was seen pacing the hallways near his old office, muttering to himself incomprehensibly. A radiation technician spotted Paul but didn't report the incident. Approached during the course of this investigation, the radiation technician, who had previously described the incident to colleagues, claimed not to remember whether he had seen Paul acting strangely that night. Colleagues explained that this technician's failure to report such an incident would render him vulnerable to firing and to regulatory consequences. In fact, this investigation discovered that aberrant behavior by licensed personnel at Byron Station goes chronically underreported. In one instance, the plant was even forced to reinstate its most erratic operator after terminating him because management had failed to adequately document numerous examples of his aberrant behaviors, including several instances of physical violence while on duty. Further, management rebuffed NSO attempts to procure substantial behavioral observation training for the majority of operators. In their defense of the Busser case, Exelon also points to their employee assistance program and maintains that reactor operators are empowered to seek psychological or psychiatric assistance. But an upper manager at Byron, Scott Fruin, once confided to a loved one what operators had long alleged. Marriage counseling is the only form of assistance considered acceptable, and attempts to seek psychotherapy or medication are often considered convenient excuses to line troublesome employees up for termination. Said another informed source, when I saw what it cost them to fire someone that way, a few $100s at that time, what a psych eval. I thought, oh my God, that's the cheapest way to fire someone I've ever seen. It's brilliant, really, but it's also terrible. Operators also claim that the stressful nature and scheduling of their work renders them uniquely prone to developing mental illnesses, a contention supported by available medical literature. A significant number of operators have entertained suicidal thoughts, often due to workplace stress, and often during their shifts while they were operating Byron's nuclear reactors. Many of these operators have avoided seeking help, fearing it could get them fired. Yeah, that or they're just people are going around getting killed. You know, that could be it too. Or it could be that they're suffering nerve damage and they can't think straight. I mean, we're getting counts out here off the roof. I'm over 100 miles away from this place. My little roar marker is lit up like a little... Well, supposedly my roar marker is false. But Chicago, you were pretty high when I checked you last. Alright, we've got a minute to go here. So basically what they're doing is they're firing people if they say they have problems or they're sleepy or whatever. It's just a way to fire people. The manner in which Exelon's legal team gathered information from Paul Busser's co-workers is also troubling. Plant employees were not informed that they were being asked to participate in litigation or that by providing information they were committing to testify against Paul's widow in court. At least 2 of the 3 who provided information feel their statements have been misconstrued by Exelon. Upon seeing the manner in which the provided information had been used in expert testimony, one of Exelon's witnesses disavowed the relevant statements. Approached during the course of this investigation, another witness insisted that he possessed no information whatsoever that could possibly be relevant to the Busser case. Nothing, I know nothing. Cutting this one off, part 3 to come. Stay tuned. Thank you.